North Dakota After Dark is proudly brought to you by Endries Construction Services. With over 20 years of experience in all areas of construction, projects that include banks, oral surgery offices, dental offices, schools, retail space, and auto body shops, you name it, they can build it. They offer assistance with all phases of construction from the initial design all the way through completion. You dream it, they make it a reality. Your next project, looking to be a breeze? Call the folks at Endries.
Welcome to North Dakota After Dark. It's After Dark. We're in North Dakota. I'm going to need to come up with a new intro, but that's my project for season 2. We are joined once again by Baylee Bjorge. Baylee is going to give us an update this evening on how the Special Olympics season went. Baylee, thank you so much for joining us again. Second-time guest. Now just you and Matt are the only 2-time guests.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
That's crazy.
Pretty crazy. Yeah. Do you think your episode will be more popular or Matt's episode will be more popular?
Fine.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. So Baylee, tell us all about how Special Olympics went.
Oh, it was amazing. So my team, Thunder,
Right.
we took second place, and I was named honorable mention all tournament team.
No kidding. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And this was volleyball, right?
Yep.
Wonderful. And then I hope it's not a sore spot, but I think, did the other Grand Forks team win?
No.
Oh, okay. So I know a young man that works at Hugo's whose name is David that also plays. Is he on your team or the other team?
Other team.
Other team. Okay. And what's their team name?
The Wolfpack.
Wolfpack. Oh, okay. How did they finish?
They took first.
Oh, man. Well, I should say, though, that's pretty good news for Grand Forks volleyball, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you guys were first and second?
Yeah, we were.
Nice. Do you have a lot of friends on the other team?
I do.
Nice. Now, do you like the people on the Thunder better or the Wolfpack? Like, do you have all your close friends on the Thunder?
Well, all of them. I can't say which one.
That's good. And do you guys get to practice together?
Yep.
Nice. Baylee, so you told us you got honorable mention all tournament team. Do you have any favorite memories from the games? Like, did you make a really good play, or what to you was the reason you got that nice award?
Well, all of my teammates and partners that nominate me, so
Wow.
I deserve that. So it's a part of my life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that's a really nice award when your teammates nominate you versus like other people that are voting, right? Because they would know you very well.
Yeah, they do.
That's great. Did you get like a medal for something like that or a plaque? Like, how did they acknowledge that you
I got a medal.
All right.
So what sport is up next now? Because now that volleyball is done, what is next?
Soccer.
Soccer's up next?
Yep.
When do you do floor hockey? Because I know there's a floor hockey season.
I'm down with floor hockey.
So you will play floor hockey as well? Oh, you're done. It won't start not till fall, I'm guessing.
Yep.
So now on to soccer.
Yep.
Okay. Do you know when soccer starts?
Yeah.
I think end of July.
Very cool.
And so outdoor soccer then?
Yep.
Nice. That'd be fun. Where do you guys play?
We play at Century Elementary, my old school.
Oh yeah, okay. I was asking because I always see, when I play volleyball with your Auntie Kelly, and we always see a lot of soccer happening at Bringawat Park. So I was just curious if you guys ever play there.
No, we play at like South Middle School for state.
Oh, okay, neat. That's right by my house.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you know what position you play in soccer?
Everywhere. Like I like playing forward. I like playing goalie.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I played soccer goalie. I always thought that was fun.
Yeah.
She's really good at goalie. I've seen her play, and she does a really good job at it. Well, she's good at everything, but she does a really nice job as goalie.
That's a tough spot to play, Baylee.
Yeah.
I think. Do you have anything else to tell us about Special Olympics? I have other questions for you.
I don't have any.
Nothing? Do you want to give a shout out to any coaches or teammates?
My UND team. So I hope.
Okay, let's hear it.
With some luck this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty exciting game, isn't it?
Yeah, really exciting game.
Yeah. So, if you had to guess, so UND is in a pool with all Michigan teams.
Yep.
So UND versus the University of Michigan. Who do you think is going to win that one?
UND.
Okay, good choice. And now, do you think Michigan State or Western Michigan will win the other game?
Western Michigan.
Do you want to know why?
No.
Guess where their coach played college hockey?
I don't know.
Yes, Baylee. North Dakota. And guess where he's from? Saskatchewan, same as me. So you can't beat someone that went to North Dakota and Saskatchewan. It's
by way of Saskatchewan.
So he knows all my jokes and he gets everything. He understands every joke I try and tell. So his name is Jason Herder, and Auntie Kelly and your mom probably remember him, but
I do,
because it was a long time ago, about 40 years before your auntie was born. Well, awesome stuff, Baylee. So I like to have you back on the show whenever you have a new sport. So would you come back on and tell us about soccer?
Yeah, I will.
And then I really, really want to hear about the floor hockey one because I used to play floor hockey.
I'm
that
done
was so
with
fun.
floor hockey.
I know. I just mean when it starts up again.
Next winter.
Yeah. So I thought we could have you on for soccer, and then we could have you on for floor hockey because that way you could tell us about each sport.
Okay.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
And then, so by next Christmas, you will have four episodes, which is 2 more than Uncle Matt. What do you think about that?
That's crazy.
I think you should remind him about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Put him in his place, Bays. Let him know.
Yeah, I will tell him that.
So, okay, well, good stuff. Once again, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And I look forward to hearing about soccer in the summer. And then gives you lots of time to get ready. Do you do anything to get ready for soccer? Do you have any special like workouts or exercises you do?
No, I work out with the UND team.
Right.
With UND at the Ralph with them. So they're coming to focus.
Yeah, focus is important in soccer because like you really have to like pay attention to what's going on.
Yeah.
Right. It's not as fast as volleyball, so you have to there's a lot of strategy there.
Soccer's too much running for me. I don't play soccer because you have to run. And I try to do that as little as I can. Yeah. But Bays, you are more athletic than me. We know this. So that's why you're the athlete.
You should watch the movie Bend It Like Beckham. That's a good one too, to get you ready for the season.
That's right. That is right.
Very good movie. So, Baylee, if you don't have any other shout outs or anything, any final thoughts for the audience?
I don't know, but I want the UND team to have fun no matter what.
Yeah.
But I want them to work hard, and I want them to believe it, earn it, and receive it. Because we need them to win this.
That is a really good message, especially the have fun part. Because if you are having fun, typically you play a lot better, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus not having fun, I guess, which is wise words, I'd say. So, thanks again, Baylee. Yeah, I'm really getting excited now for the soccer part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hear all about your goalie stuff.
Yeah.
Is that a deal?
Yeah. One of my teammates, he was from Sweden.
No kidding.
And he did play soccer.
That's neat. A long time ago, I lived in Canada, and I'm sorry to say that. But I played on an indoor soccer team, and I played with a bunch of guys from Poland, and they were crazy guys, but very good at soccer. So I wonder if they knew your buddy from Sweden.
He's from, so he played for UND, and he's like a goalie for us, and he's like
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about.
lovely person.
Yeah.
Like every time I like each episode on, I watch every like episode on YouTube.
Yep.
For Susie's Doors a lot. They
Yeah.
did like some episodes about him, about what he's from and what he likes, and one thing he likes is that playing soccer.
Cool.
Yeah. It's very, very popular. I know a lot of the hockey teams in Sweden do that for training. Like a guy that used to live from Sweden, Peter Elander, that used to live in Grand Forks. He coaches Ohio State women's team, and they just won the national championship. So congratulations to them. But he said they would always play soccer to warm up and get for conditioning. So that's cool that they still do that.
Yeah.
So well, Baylee, our second guest is here. So thank you again for coming on.
Yeah.
And we are excited to talk to you in the fall, or in the summer, I mean. And we'll have this episode out tomorrow, so I'll let you know when it's ready, and you can send it to all your friends. Is that a deal?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks again for joining us, Baylee.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bees.
Have a
Love
nice-
you and have a good
Thank
night,
you.
sweetie.
Yep.
Okay. Bye, babe.
It's I like the shout out to UND. That was
Oh
that's a
yeah,
good speech. I'm gonna steal that.
she's hardcore. She that's the number one fan right there.
Do I have to come on camera?
You're on camera too late, and I already have a lot of pre-signed waivers just for you.
Oh no. I didn't know there was gonna be a third person named Matt Moreland.
I know. You know
Wow.
what? It used to say my name on this, and then my husband did something, and now my Zoom has been commandeered. So
Yeah, I typically would think that Kelly just did it to throw the NSA off because we're both being watched or on some kind of watch list. But I
people
know,
low profile.
yeah, I know Matt Moreland does video coaching, so I'm assuming that's
Mhm.
why.
Well, you can switch it to like Poopy Head and hope he doesn't notice for his next coaching session.
Just speak it right in there.
I like that. Well, Tom, Lynn, welcome to the show.
Hello.
You're on North Dakota After Dark. Tom is an agent with Veritas Hockey Management based in St. Paul, Minnesota. So Kelly has agreed for the duration of the show to not say anything bad about Minnesota so long as you say one bad thing about Minot.
Iowa
not
is the
your
common
name.
enemy, right? Iowa?
I can get behind that, yeah. However, I did go there this summer, and they have a fun little casino on the border with a sports book. So
Ooh.
I've softened
Yeah.
a little bit on Iowa.
I know the one you mean.
Yeah, I went brief non sequitur. I went to Iowa briefly this summer. My wife popped into a store to get a coat or I don't know, whatever it was. And the sales lady happened to be the grandmother of a kid I went to law school with, which we found out in about 3 minutes of talking.
Yes, it's like Harvard. How do you know someone went to North Dakota Law School? They'll tell you, right?
I lead with that all the time. Oh, I'm sorry, I dropped my alumni pin.
Yeah, right?
Oh, this.
This whole thing. So on that note, Tom is an attorney, worked for a firm in New York. One of the very first employees ever of the Minnesota Wild, longtime assistant general manager of the team in the Houston Aeros, worked in hockey for a long time. And Corey is joining us now from baseball. Tom is going to talk to us a little bit about sort of the role of an agent and advisor. And as we get into this spring season, some of maybe the do's and don'ts in a season or at a time for hockey parents when you are inundated with invites and camps and clinics and you need to come to this or else you'll never make it. We're going to go through all of that. So as soon as
What
Corey,
happened to Corey? He was there and then he was gone. Oh, there he is.
I'm
I'm
here.
here.
The show.
Yeah, I'm not going to big time us or anything.
Yeah, fashionably late, just like P. Diddy or someone else not under.
or
under
someone
indictment.
not P. Diddy.
Corey, the show tonight is 75% attorneys.
Wow. Kelly, how do you feel about that?
You know, I feel, I don't know, is this, should I be nervous? Should I feel secure? I don't know. Attorneys are a toughie, you know?
Yeah, you go either way.
Yeah.
It really can. It can be your best friend or your worst enemy.
Right. I will fill the Fannie Willis role of the attorney, so don't be impressed by what I have to say.
You went there first. I was gonna
Yeah.
say Saskatchewan is like the Sicily of Canada. You know, you're a Saskatchewan attorney.
The first pronunciation was really good. The second one, Tom, was too many syllables, but that's okay. Makes Corey happy.
He nailed it. Don't let anyone say differently.
Yeah. So, Corey, we just gave a sort of a wordy introduction to Tom, and I thought, Tom, if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about yourself from your own, or in your own words, rather, and then sort of jump into the role of an agent and advisor?
Sure. So one of the great experiences I had that helps me in my current role as an agent and advisor is that I was a tremendous failure. And so, everyone says, oh, learn from your failures. And I was a spectacular failure. So I learned a lot. But I was a hockey player, like so many guys we counsel, and grew up in Central New York, Snowbelt. The big rival of our high school team was Rob Lowe's high school from Youngblood. Remember that Youngblood started the movie? That was Messina, New York. So I didn't know any better. Small town. It's like coming out of Roseau here. I went off to a big Division I school, and I sat down for the first captain's practice. And the guy on my left said, "Hey, have you been drafted?" I'm thinking, like, the Army? Like, this is 1986. There's no internet. There's not much going on. I didn't know when people were drafting the NHL, when it was. And the guy on the other side of me went to this Mount Charles school in Rhode Island. He'd been drafted too. And I thought, well, I might be in trouble here. So I became a Division I hockey JV player for a couple of years, and then realized I wasn't going to play in the big leagues ever. So I stopped playing hockey and hit the books. So all the time I spent doing it. I used to say I was a double major, bio and anatomy major. And so I did a lot of research into biology, especially chemistry, late at night, and anatomy. I was always seeking greater knowledge in those two areas. So eventually I gave it all up and gave up hockey too and hit the books. Then I did well enough to go to Cornell Law School and then to a big firm in New York. So I get to this big firm in New York. I'm one of 65 people incoming. I notice I'm like a foot taller than everyone else. I'm not that tall, but this was a nerdy West Side New York firm, like you'd see in the movies, right? When they found out I was the only person there who had ostensibly played Division I hockey, they were excited because this firm represented the NHL. And so they immediately put me on NHL matters, and then it all went from there. Five and a half years there, and then the Wild called. So I set up the Wild's hockey operations department and was assistant GM for 9 years there. New owner came in and fired us all, so I switched sides and became an agent. Met Kyle, who's basically done all my work ever since then. And I just kind of figurehead, man behind the curtain type deal. But that was about 2011. And ever since then, we've had a grand old time as agents and advisors. So that's my side of the story.
And you're sticking to it.
So far.
Yeah.
But and the business has changed so much in the interim. That's the
Right.
exciting part of it.
I do not want to admit how embarrassingly long I was like, oh, he likes biology, chemistry, and anatomy too. Those were my wait, he's not being serious.
That joke
I was
landed.
being serious, but
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
There's more
Riverside
than
continues-
one way to learn anatomy, Corey.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, the Riversider got that joke right away. I could tell.
Yeah. I mean, biochem is a lot of room for subjective experience. You'd be surprised.
I was picking up very quickly on that you were a hockey player. There's a very common history with hockey players and girls. So and I married one, so I know. But
a girl or a hockey player?
A hockey player. Well,
Okay,
look, you drank
good.
the mom water earlier. I
Just wanted
told
to
you
show
that,
you.
Kyle. So
Yeah, it's up for debate as of now.
yeah, we don't know now.
That's
And I'm just here in my basement, disappointed that we're not going to talk about the Krebs cycle and the light and dark cycles of photosynthesis. Like, I thought we were going to have some fun tonight, guys.
I
Corey,
can wind that in there.
Where did you get that smoking hot wife? All right.
Small town, catch them early before they see what else is out in the gene pool.
Bingo.
Now you tell me. Well, a little late for that, I think. Another part that really helped me with my experiences in hockey career is I've broken a lot of bones in my time. Lately, most of them are my own. And so I've learned a lot about injuries and orthopedics. I have an artificial ankle from shattering my leg in a dirt bike accident. Broke both shoulders, both arms, and a variety of toes and fingers. I had what's called an accordion fracture of my big toe, which means it's smushed down like an accordion. And like a lot of hockey players, I didn't go to the doctor for 6 weeks. And I went in, this is just a few years ago, and he was horrified. He's looking at and he's gasping, making a funny noise, looking at the x-ray, because they do it in the room now. I said, Doc, you okay? He's like, yeah. He says, what have you been doing with this foot? Like, how have you been walking around on it? I said, well, what else would I do? So he said, but you had an accordion fracture. I said, well, is it bad? He says, yeah, it's bad. He says, what would you do? And he says, well, it looks like it's healing, actually. But I would have put you in a boot and done blah, blah, blah. And I said, Doc, let me ask you a question. Said, go ahead. I said, do you have kids? He says, yeah. I said, what sports do they play? Said, oh, tennis and soccer. I said, well, we just don't have a meeting of the minds here. You don't understand where I'm coming from. And so I got a different doctor who treated hockey players, and he knew what was going on right away. Just try to break the toe and straighten it out, and then see what happens. That's how hockey rolls.
And now you're here.
Pretty much, it's still a curved toe. But my point is that you learn a lot about medicine through personal experience as much as running a medical staff like I did for the Wild. Funny story with the Wild, when I showed up, my boss told me, because I was a lawyer from a big firm in New York, and he thought I was smarter than I was. The only ability I've ever had my whole life is the ability to speak well, right? So in Western culture, people think you're smart if you can speak well. I couldn't build a bridge. I couldn't do a biochem experiment. I can't tell you how mitochondria build microtubules in order to reproduce, but I can speak well. And so people think you're smart. So my boss thought I was smart, and he put me in charge of hiring a medical staff. So before I knew it, I was 3 weeks to the Wild. I'd been in a big firm. I'm 34 years old, and I'm interviewing some of the best doctors in Minnesota and asking them tough questions, like, what would you do in this circumstance? And so I ended up having to hire the medical staff and then had them report to me for 9 years. So I learned a lot that way as well. You look fascinated, Kyle. You're like, wow.
I'm perpetually
people can BS their
fascinated.
way through just about anything if they could speak well.
Right. Which is actually a pretty good segue to one of the other things we wanted to talk about. Kelly and I have kids similar age. Corey has also one in that age group and one a little bit older. So Corey and I are kind of talking about that. And now that the regular season has ended, we're into spring hockey, and there's invites coming out for, as I said, shooting camps, skating camps, summer teams, tournaments, you name it. And I know you have opinions on this, so just wanted to get your take on. Last summer we had an episode called the FOMO episode, the fear of missing out, is how much is too much for kids. So just wanted you to touch on that a little bit, and how parents, because it's primarily a hockey parent podcast, how parents can navigate, the offers in the spring and summer and get their son or daughter to the right amount of things, if any.
Got it. Hold on, let me get my soapbox.
Yeah, all right.
This is one of my favorite topics. And I don't have my Brent Burns bobblehead out. So I put some bobbleheads on the table next to me, but I have to rotate them with enough room. I got Bugard, Panarin, Holmquist, and Mike Smith today. But a good example would be Brent Burns. And I'll try to keep this simple because I like to wax eloquent on this topic. But parents will come to me, especially in Minnesota, and say, my son's got this great offer. We're thinking about sending him away to Dallas or Long Island or Idaho or wherever it is to play hockey. It's like, how old is he? Oh, he's 13, turning 14. Oh, well, it's kind of young to leave home. Huh? Yeah, we're hearing that he could be the next big thing, and I just feel like I got to do everything I can for my son and go away and play hockey. And I'll say, well, what happens if he doesn't? Well, he can't miss this chance, And I said, Brent Burns played goalie until he was 13 years old. He's now a Hall of Fame defenseman. He played goalie until he was 13. That's how, important all these little things are. And it was important that he was an athlete, and then he worked hard at being an athlete and developed character, but he didn't specifically have to go to someone's camp to do it. When he came out of the net, it was because they wouldn't let him play up as a goalie, only as a skater. He was a big kid. So in order to play up to the next level, he came out of the net, and he was a defenseman. Then he was made into a forward first draft year. Then we moved to defense, then to forward, then defense again. The idea being is there's no specific skill that's going to make your kid a different one. You can't make silk purse out of a sow's ear, you can improve, where they are, which what skill training does. And herein lies the rub. So hockey players nowadays, in my day, we took off the skates at the end of the year. 2 weeks of hockey camp in the summer, usually 1 or 2 weeks, and then you put them back on in the fall. You knock the rust off them. So now that's not possible. And yet, the science tells us that skaters, I should say, that I'm not sure about goalies, but skaters who play other sports up to the end of high school have a higher chance of going further in hockey, as their brains and bodies are diversified. They're able to learn more and more quickly each level they go through. Their cognition stays more open for development rather than being really set in the tracks. It's just hockey. So you play lacrosse, baseball, soccer, all those other things your brain has to process things at a high speed and do that. So a diversity of sports is good, first of all. Secondly, you do need a certain degree of skill training nowadays. I hate to say it, but there's kids out there. What happened was the NHL lockout. I think this was going to happen anyway, but Kyle and I have tied it to the NHL lockout. So in 1998, you had some options for training in big places like Minnesota with hockey and the centers of hockey, Toronto, Detroit, Vancouver. But right around the time of 03 to 05, especially during the NHL lockout when hockey wasn't being played, there was a bunch of guys in hockey who created a cottage industry. It was amazing because they looked around and they thought, there's a lot of parents in wealthy suburbs in Bloomington Hills, Michigan, Edina, Minnesota, Vancouver, Toronto. These parents are spending all this money on giant boats, hunting trips, multiple cabins, trips to the Caribbean. They would spend that money on their kids' hockey if only given the opportunity. And we got to give them the opportunity. So then you had an explosion of things. From 01 to 06, the landscape changed. We started having what's called here like MAP, Minnesota Made, First Athlete, and now there's more than 8 kind of hockey academies in the Twin Cities themselves that specialize in hockey. So if you want to blow 35 grand on your kids' hockey, you can do it easily now. You can have a skating coach, stick handling coach, psychological coach, shooting coach, and then a general skills coach, play for a AAA team, and then a separate AAA team on the weekend. And so you've got all these different options you can have, which brings a lot of the FOMO. So FOMO powers this whole thing. From our own examination as longtime agents and advisors, Kyle and I, and then from my time as GM of the Houston Aeros, a minor league team, we have found that most skaters who don't make to the end of their potential don't do so because they weren't the athlete you thought they were. It's because of what happens off ice. And I'll give you an example. So I was GM in Houston, the Aeros, and a lot of our best athletes weren't making it to the NHL, and I wondered why. So we did a survey of players who were drafted in the 3rd round of the NHL draft. I think the 1st round, you're supposed to make it, right? Those guys are easy. 2nd round, guys that just missed the 1st round for some reason. But the 3rd round was, all right, these guys still go to the combine. They're poked and prodded and measured. They're seen live. They're seen on video 25, 30 times. Their skating stride is analyzed. The teams know who 3rd rounders are. And I thought, how many of them make it to the NHL? So I looked at it, and only 15% of them played 40 games in a season or 100 games career. 15% of these guys who you had all the access to in the world, playing for the National Team Development Program, getting seen all the time. And so I realized that, hey, in 1986, when a guy showed up at Minnesota North Stars camp from Northern Quebec, a lot of guys hadn't seen him before. Just one scout from Quebec sent a handwritten letter to Louis Nanny saying, draft this guy. He shows up. He could be 5'11" instead of 6'3". Or be a terrible skater. You didn't know. Nowadays, no one shows up like that anymore because it's all evened out, with the stick handling coaches, skating coaches, and everything else. So why do only 15% make it? What happened to the other 85%? They showed up at NHL training camp as advertised. They weren't shorter or slower or anything different. They were the physical player that was expected, and yet they can't make it. So I started realizing, wow, a lot of stuff goes on off ice. Biggest culprits, as you might suspect, are alcohol and drugs. Not just the guys who end up in the gutter, but the guys who it takes the edge off their game. The guy who's almost going to make it. The guy who could be a 3rd liner, but he goes out, 2-3 nights a week, and he plays at 89, 91% of himself. The next culprits are lifestyle issues, video games, lack of sleep, poor hydration, diet. They're just not the best version of themselves. When you're one of 1,000 2001 born kids trying to earn about 80 NHL contracts. So take 1,000 of the best athletes in hockey, and maybe 80 of them in the United States will sign a contract in that given year when their time comes. Will have signed NHL contracts. Little things can take you out of the mix, like if you're not 100% of yourself. And so then you have a girlfriend can be a career-threatening injury. as the moms often understand, because some of them are great, but Kyle and I run into this. Kid gets a scholarship offer. His girlfriend says, "Oh, Michigan's so far away. Why don't you turn it down? Maybe get something closer to home." And seen two players give up full offers to Division I schools and ended up never playing Division I hockey or moving on from there. Once you swing and miss, because sometimes you have your moment, right? So there's lots of things off ice that can pull kids away. The reason I'm doing this long soapbox on this is getting back to Kyle's original question. If I pay money for this thing for my 13, 14, 15-year-old, is that going to be worth it? Is that going to guarantee he's going to get the exposure and looks he needs and all the rest? And I look at it like, wow, if you're going to be a bona fide high-end prospect for a Division I or pro, there's so much that goes into that and so much is off ice. So first of all, is your son a good enough athlete to make it? You may not know yet, but you have an idea. So the person that told me his son might make it, be a big star if he sent him away from home at 13 or 14, I said to him, go to your window. Okay. Do you see any TV trucks out there? He says, no. I said, well, he's not the next Connor McDavid. So you got that worked out. He's going to have to work and earn for whatever he's getting. And that's when you start into what kind of character your son has, what kind of academics he has. There's 64 Division I programs. A quarter of them are very high academic schools, Ivy League schools, RPI, Colgate, Michigan. So academics, the character to get through the resiliency you need, to have the resiliency to get through the adversity that you'll need along the way. These are all important. So then you get back to, okay, my son's got to do some camps, but I want to give you a sense that of these camps and teams and things that come in the email, none of them are crucial. There's not one of them that you have to go to, your son's not going to make it. But the people on the other side make money that way. And God bless them. I don't begrudge them making money, being in the free market. They're saying, oh, FOMO. If you're going to miss out, if your son doesn't get to this, then he's not going to make the 13-year-old all-star team. Then he will make the 14-year-old all-star team. Then he will make the 15-year-old national camp. And next thing you know, he's going to be working in the gas station. And so you have this fear that they want to throw on you. And as long as your son is, if you're building character and he's playing hockey and he's working on his skills and it's coming from him, not you. If you're dragging him out of bed at 6 a.m. to go to breakfast club and skating consistently, once in a while you have to. But if it's not coming from him, he's probably not going to make it long-term anyway. It's got to come from the athlete. But if he is earning these accolades and he is earning these looks and people want the camps to come to you, pick ones that work for your budget and your time. If it's not working for the family budget or time, you're giving your son a warped sense of values. And that can be a lot of pressure on a kid. You can really get kind of a Ryan Leaf type feeling. Well, now I'm dating myself, but no one else will date me. I don't know of a newer example than Ryan Leaf, but Kyle probably has him. He's all over that social media stuff.
All over it.
There's a lot of pressure that can be brought to bear on a player implicitly or indirectly by the way family makes decisions. I have in my own life. I was always told to say academics were the most important thing. My parents say academics are the most important thing. And we would talk about hockey at the dinner table and the breakfast table and to all our friends. We didn't talk about academics. So I knew implicitly what was more important, even though we said academics were important. So when your son gets the example that you have a budget of time and money that you'll dedicate to hockey in the off season, and things that fit into it work. It's a good example for him. He has to make the most of those opportunities. And the most important thing is to be the best version of himself. And then if he's a good enough player and has a strong character, he's more likely to make those hockey goals that you want him to get to or he wants to get to. There's no shortcuts. We've seen so many people try to take it, but I don't want to call it names here. Some are fairly famous, but Kyle and I along the way have seen some parents spend egregious amounts of money and time. And it often gives their son a short-term boost. Because he's only a 16-year-old with striated muscles, so he can beat others to the punch. But by the time he's 19 or 20, everyone else has him, and he doesn't have anything else, and he's burned out, and he missed high school because he went to sit in a room going online school and lifting weights since he was 13. Never get those experiences back. So when you look at all these invitations that you're getting for all the parents listening to this, if it works for your family and their budget and your time commitment, then that's the right thing to do. And if your son's going to be a great player, he'll make the most of it. Make sense?
100%. To me, anyways.
Kelly looks doubtful at this point. She's like,
no, actually, it does make sense to me. And I see like the value of having an advisor just because I watched my husband going through this. He did not have an advisor. And I think it's just things that like, my husband always point out that he was first generation hockey family. So, there's just disadvantage to not, knowing like, okay, so what comes next? And like he said, he goes, I didn't know. I was learning as I was going. So, our sons will get the advantage of the experience. But I think that it's just really important because there are a lot of people who very much would love to see their sons go far in hockey, but they don't understand what goes into that. It's very hard to navigate. And so all of this is helpful just because I'm seeing the value of that. If you have someone working on your behalf who knows how this process works and all the side paths that it can take, like you said, it's not necessarily always just a straight path to, you play here, you play here. Oh, sorry, I have a co-host here that never leaves me alone. You play here, and then you go to the NHL. Like that's not the path for everybody, and it's actually not the path for most people. So it's just really important to know. I think there are a lot of young men, and I've had family members, seen boys that my husband coaches, that just for lack of clarity of what happens next, they hang it up because they just don't know.
Right.
And so I think it's just it's interesting and it's important, and I think it more people have questions about this that just don't know where you go to get answers to that.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. I wish there was some kind of repository. Now, who does a great job of it is College Hockey Inc., which is the marketing arm of Division I college hockey. That's actually their website, College Hockey Inc. And the guy I worked with at the Wild is now running it. But they're an educational tool. They'll go around giving seminars to players and families saying, here's what junior hockey is, here's what this is, here's our website with resources. But you're right, and a lot of people aren't telling a player that if he's from he's from Mandan, he's a pretty good player, and he's 14 or 15, what do I need to get ahead? And unfortunately, like most businesses, there are a number of advisors out there who don't really know, but want to be in hockey.
Right.
So kid's a big hockey fan. He gets a job with a life insurance company. I want to be in hockey. I'm selling life insurance by day, but he goes to rinks on the weekends and he gives out cards and says, I'm an advisor. That's how a lot of people are going to do it. Wayne Gretzky's agent was a bartender. He chatted up him and Walt, and eventually, after a year and a half, convinced him to switch to him and do his first contract. Famous agent Ron Sulzer was a shoe salesman who used to play on a softball team with a bunch of the Los Angeles Kings in California from a bar they used to go to. So the bar had an off-season softball team. He got to know them, and he ended up being an agent. So a lot of people are getting into this business without a lot of prior knowledge. And Kyle and I are attorneys, giving you that comfort. But when you're an advisor, and I think you indirectly hinted at this, Kelly, you got to know a lot of rules, NCAA rules, cross-border rules, because Hockey Canada and USA have a transfer agreement and it has a lot of contingencies to it about money that has to be paid and times you can leave and come back, and you can't come back after certain times. So there's the NHL collective bargaining agreement, which is 568 pages long now. And there's USA hockey rules, about jumping here and there. So if moving high schools, playing somewhere else during the season. So ideally, an advisor of sorts would have knowledge of these rules if they're going to help someone, because that's really what parents need the most, is good, solid knowledge to make decisions from, and not necessarily kind of a marketing and sales thing. Like, you got to go to this place. I joke about it because some of the advisors have told, not clients of ours, but since I have 6 kids that played hockey here, I'm pretty active in the Minnesota hockey community. Parents come up and say, hey, my son got invited to this NHL pre-draft camp, because it's a league that gives a lot of camps. They'll say, because my advisor got it for me. I have to tell them, like, I'm sorry to hear that, because I'm 54 and 35 pounds overweight, and I got an invitation too by the email, because if you have $375, you can go. So it's not always the best advice you're getting. So it's like lawyers or car salesmen or anything else. There's good ones, better ones, and not so great ones. But if you're looking for someone, if you're a parent looking, the advice I would give you is this. And by the way, it wouldn't be us, because although Kyle and I do advising, we find our clients, not vice versa. So it's because we are a small boutique. They're looking for a certain type of NHL prospect. But for all those advisors out there that are pitching people at rinks, as a parent, just think, does this person represent my interests better than I do? In other words, don't hire a lawyer unless you feel after talking to him he's going to represent you better than you would yourself in court or whatever you're doing in a contract. And don't hire an advisor if you're like, he doesn't present himself well, doesn't seem to know everything, but I don't know anything, I'll hire him. No, don't do it unless they inspire confidence in you that they know what they're doing, and then you feel a little bit better about it. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. And it makes sense what you said, because I was going to ask, do you have to be an attorney to become an advisor? But like you said, Wayne Gretzky and a bartender, but it makes sense why that would be an advantage. Like you said, there's policy, there's rules, there's negotiation, and for the most part, most people are not familiar with it, and it would be very hard to be familiar with all of it, without any experience in it.
You'd be shocked. Only about 35% of NHLPA certified agents are lawyers. So when I was on the team side negotiating, I ran into some pretty incompetent guys. Now their players wouldn't know that because they're good salesmen, right? They'd show up, I'm going to show the team, you're the next Wayne Gretzky. They don't know nothing. I believe in you. Your Bantam coach was wrong. Your junior coach was wrong. Your college coach was wrong. Only I see it. I'm going to tell that team. And the players, wow, this guy really believes in me. But we had instances of rank incompetence. I'll give you two examples. One of them was a famous Wild player, actually, filed for arbitration. And I was curious because I was like, wow, his arbitration number is lower than his qualifier. In other words, to keep his rights, we had to qualify him a certain number. I think it was 750. In arbitration, you're compared for comparable players. So this big dope of an agent had filed for arbitration, just being like, yeah, we're going to show the team. We're going to go into arbitration. So I called the agent a week later and I said, here's my 5 top comps, and your guy's going to lose about $100,000. He's like, what are you talking about? We're not going to play unless we get our money. I was like, well, you already filed arbitration, so the arbitrator is going to give an award. There's nothing to be done now. He calls back a week later and he's like, oh, can you help me out here? But that's what can happen. Another one, that guy filed for arbitration, and the agent came in and demanded, he said, we're going to go for a 2-year deal at these numbers, because the guy was 30 and he was about to become an unrestricted free agent at 31. And I said, you're not entitled to a 2-year deal under the collective bargaining agreement. Did you see it? He looked surprised. I said, you can only get 1-year deal. Did you file this under the whole supposition you get a 2-year deal? He said, I got to get back to you. So these are millions of dollars at stake. And as an attorney, I have to zealously represent my client, which was the Minnesota Wild. So I can't, just walk him through everything and say, oh, kind of like Ox in Stripes, showing the guy how to play cards. You guys are too young for that, aren't you? Oh, such a great team. If this was Italy, I'd bet it all. Yeah. No, but I had to deal with agents in that position. So agents and advisors, you really have to vet them and feel confident and ask other people around the business about it, because you can get someone who might just be a good talker like me right here, right now. But you want to have the substance behind it.
So, Tom, first of all, it's not Kelly's fault for looking suspect to anything the men in this podcast say, because usually it's very suspect. So he's not used to people of authority speaking on things they understand with the usual crew.
Resting suspicious face.
Yeah.
It's
an earned status. Let's go that route. But so we're in this place that we are in, the hockey hotbeds that we are, where you have these kids who play in their youth associations, and then you have these kids who play AAA hockey in the private groups, and then you have these specialty hockey groups that are springing up. The Youth Hockey Hub series, the MAP you've talked about. In Minneapolis, they have all of their own academies, and you see some of the top players partaking at younger ages. I mean, we're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 in these special invite leagues. And you see this progression, and the kids reach the ages of 14, 15, 16 when they're the bantam age, and maybe more of the different leagues of hockey are starting to look at players. And you hear parents in this angst about, and you talked about it, FOMO, of what are put yourself in the shoes of a parent who has a child who wants more. How did those parents know what is the crap and what is the good?
Mm-hmm. So your son's succeeding and he wants more hockey. He wants more challenge. He wants more. He says, hey, I'm 12, but I would like to do some spring skating because I'd like to be on the ice.
Right.
Which is great, because that's the first most important thing, is that it's coming from the kid and not the parent. Mm-hmm. So that's number one, to meet that. And number two, so you sign them up for a spring program, let's say, which is good. But we have a rule in our family. Not everyone has to adopt the same rules. I just encourage you to have values that your kid will understand. But in our family, in-season sports take priority over off-season sports. So my daughter's playing soccer, my other kids are into hockey. So if you got a lacrosse game and it's spring, that comes first before hockey. Rare instances if you're playing a spring hockey team and you have like a playoff game and you only have a practice for lacrosse, maybe. But in general, in season takes precedence. Number two, if your kid wants to skip off season stuff, I'm not as hard on it. So I'm kind of, I shouldn't say death on it. I was gonna say I'm death on kids missing stuff, but I do think it's important that when a kid commits to do something or gets committed to a team, he doesn't miss Tuesdays because he didn't feel like going, or Thursday because his friends invited him to the mall. This is a commitment, you keep it. But in an off-season situation, it's a little different. Now you're saying, all right, my son's a baseball player in the summer, a soccer player, whatever he's doing as his off-season sports, and he's also skating 4 nights a week. But if he says he doesn't want to do it, you got to think like, all right, it's the off-season. He skated 16 times this month, and it's not even hockey season. I'll really not going to probably push him on that because he should skate as much as he wants to. And yes, you've spent the money, and I spent a lot of money on my 6 kids playing hockey, but you're not going to get the money back, right? That's a sunk cost. So for the most part, unless you're paying per session, but most places make you pay up front. So you got a sunk cost, let's say it's $2,000 into a program. You just want your kid to get the optimal part out of it. And the optimal part will be if he stays motivated and loves hockey, not that he has to trudge out there every minute and do it. So I hope that's helpful to you as far as our view.
It is. I'm just going to briefly interrupt you. Did
Yeah.
you say you had 6 kids in hockey?
Yeah, only 5 at one time, though.
Okay, I just want you to know I'm literally sweating in my chair right now. That makes me physically ill to think about.
I can't even imagine.
And the great thing is, first of all, they socialize with each other, but your standards go way down. I was just telling a young parent this today. The most difficult time with kids is when you have 2, because you had 1 kid and then you try to do everything you did for 1 kid with 2, so it doubles, right? And then when you have a 3rd kid, your standards start going down. Instead of boiling pacifiers in the baby bottles, you just rinse them off. And then the kids start taking care of each other by the time the 4th and 5th come along, so you're more hands off. Yeah. And so their experience of hockey is the same way. We are regulars that play against sports. They know us by name. And our values go right down to that. Hockey is important, but other things are more important. We're a larger family, so we'll deal with it. By the time my oldest kid, my 94, quit hockey, the youngest girl was coming online, so I never had more than 5 in it at a time. But I want you to know,
I've only got 3 kids, and 50-50 if my 10-year-old daughter's home. I don't even know where she is.
She might be here.
I don't know. I just got home from coaching baseball. I hope she's in her bedroom sleeping. I don't know.
Right.
Fingers crossed.
That's the way to roll.
Well, and then it's going in different directions. I know we were just down in the cities this weekend, and I had 1 playing in Super Series and 1 playing in Stars of Tomorrow, and 1 was in Bloomington and the other was in Plymouth, and it was a juggling act. We made it work, but and they're not that close. I mean, they're 3 years apart, but when they're both in hockey, it becomes a juggling act.
And those things are great. Like, I don't mean to suggest, because I speak derisively sometimes of how many programs are out there. If kids are playing them and like them, it's fun. What I warn parents about is don't have any expectation that because your son's the best 9-year-old that he's going to be the best 19-year-old.
Right. Right.
It's something we look back on. But Minnesota, you can find online, there's a Band of the Year award for the last, 12, 13 years. And you can find the 5 finalists online. And sometimes you see names you recognize, and other times you don't, because you can be one of the 5 best players in the best hockey state in the country. And by the time you're 17, not even playing it. Because just the vagaries of life. Sometimes you have other pursuits. Maybe you physically matured early and you were stronger or faster than other people on different things. So sometimes the 9-year-old out there isn't even playing hockey by the time he's 11. So if you're doing it because they're having fun and they're moving it forward and it's a good activity for them, and Lord knows boys have way too much energy. Well, now I think about it, I don't know how I would have raised girls without sports back in the old days, but for the 2 weeks between sports seasons, we had doors slamming and I hate yous. And then the next season would start and we'd have organization again. It tires them out, gives them some structure to their life.
Right.
But so I totally get why you have, you come down and you have something in Plymouth and something in Bloomington, and you have the right perspective, which is, yeah, in 4 years, my kid might really want to take up shot put, and that's what he plays going forward. If you're okay with that, then it all works.
Right. And mostly for us, like we always, even with this, we will ask them if they get asked to do something, do you want to? If they say no, we're not going to do it. It has to be that they want to. And the other thing that's really fun about it is it's really good hockey. It's a good experience, but they make so many friends. And that's, I really like that too, where they know kids from Grand Rapids, they know kids from Crookston, they know kids from Duluth, they know, they meet kids from all over. And so then when they play them again, it's, oh, hey, yeah, I know that guy. We did this together. And so it's, it's a lot of fun. But I think you're right. It's, if they don't want to do it, we would never, just because it has to be what they love. If they don't love it, it's too much time, too much money, too much energy. If it's parents pushing, it has to be kid led. So, and I wouldn't spend the money if they didn't want to. I can think of way better things to spend money on.
For shopping. You mentioned a phenomenon that I find fascinating, which is kids get to know each other through these tournaments and everything else, different things they play in the off season, and they don't hate each other as much as they used to.
Right.
So I just said to my wife the other day, now how many years has it been? 38 years since my high school team lost the state championship game to Rome Free Academy. I still hate their entire first line. And if they walked into the room, I'd want to fight them. They were dirty too. They were really dirty. So they had 3 19-year-olds, guys that were too old for it. One had a full beard for the game. But, we just hated each other. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have off-season stuff. We played against each other from Pee Wee on up. I was in Syracuse and they were in Rome, New York. And you just hated each other. Yeah. And I said that was just part of being a boy and then a man. And now these guys play games and they all shake hands and hug. You see the college level even because they played, some other camps together. So I don't know where all the hate is gone. Where's the hate gone?
You're right. I support that. That's true. Because during the game, you should hate each other.
Red River and Grand Forks Central, like that type of deal.
And I'm hardcore Central.
How about some hugs?
So yeah, no, never.
Kelly's put up with Red River guests the last little while here, so it's good to have at least a neutral person.
And I had pretended to be a well-adjusted, accepting person. Yeah. I pretended. So
it's not her fault that we're the reigning champions and she's taking it hard.
Vino.
Sorry.
That's a shot right there. Shots fired.
Yeah.
So listening to the just that last piece about getting to know kids from other areas, one of the questions I get a lot in North Dakota, and I know Kelly inadvertently does through Matt, who coaches at Central, is I'm worried about playing in North Dakota because nobody will find me. And I think what you spoke about before, Tom, the cottage industry of everyone's involved in hockey all over the place has sort of taken away that mystery element of it. But could you touch on that a little bit about how interconnected or how small of a world hockey is now, and how you get recommendations for kids playing all over the place that you might not have received, 25, 30 years ago.
Right. And North Dakota is no longer, off the map, as it were.
Right.
College coaches will be conversant with the top 8 or 10 schools. They'll know what's going on there. They'll know players' names. It's still, it's a sideline point to your point, Kyle. Sometimes they want to see a player they're interested in from North Dakota high school play junior before they make a decision on him, because he's playing a certain milieu, and you might say, all right, well, that's not Edina versus Maple Grove as far as the level of play, but I like this player. I'm going to go watch him in his USHL camp and see. So they're not off the grid. There are very few places left in the United States that are off the grid. I mean, once in a while you can say, oh, he's from the hills of Pennsylvania, or even Texas, California, Illinois, they're all on the grid now. So you have to be pretty far off the beaten path. And people ask for exposure a lot. Is my son getting exposure? Well, between streaming, off-season programs, word of mouth, whatever's going on, the coaches do find out about him. My biggest question to people is your son ready for the exposure? No. Well, yeah, you want exposure for your son. Well, suppose he trots out there and he's not quite good enough yet, and the coach writes down no. So now you're off. You got to know next to your name, and you're probably not going to earn back from there. So don't push for exposure if that's what you want to college or junior coaches until they're ready. And at that point, it's hard not to get exposed nowadays. I mean, they're out there, they have high budgets, they have 3 assistants at the college level now, and the junior teams all have regional scouts. So absolutely, they cover North Dakota. They even cover South Dakota to some extent. I heard someone talking about last year about a kid who played for the, I guess they call it Pierre, but Pierre, South Dakota high school. And that's someplace that's probably never produced a Division I player. And yet, given the internet, given the off-season programs where everyone mixes together, goes to camps, their names are in there. So you don't have to worry about exposure. You might want to hide until you're ready to get that exposure
Right,
more
yeah,
than anything else.
yeah.
You know?
So Tom, with your experience and background, I feel like you're well suited to answer some of my usual chicanery type questions.
Right.
The first being, tell me about some crazy parents.
Oh,
You got any good crazy parent stories you've had to deal with, either as a parent of a hockey player or as someone who's looked to your entity for advising services?
Right. Well, a couple caveats.
Yep.
One is, I understand sometimes these parents are coming from a heartfelt place. Some of them aren't. The worst hockey parent is someone who's trying to live through their child. Sometimes another hockey parent, it's because they're divorced and this is the time they spend with that child and they really value it higher than maybe they should, and his achievements in a way they should. There's other people who've lost a child. I can think of someone who lost a younger child and they really focus on, well, Jimmy's got to really do well here because that's his thing, and I got to make sure I give him everything to do his thing. And so there's people that come to it from a place that's unregulated, not emotionally regulated properly, but is understandable. Then there's people that are trying to live through their kids, and that is the tough thing for us. Because, honestly, I've turned down some significant players for that reason. And not for any good reason. It's strategic, because most people who are like that go through 3 agents by the time they're 24 years old, because anything that bad has happened is going to be the agent's fault. Well, I didn't get to go to the college I wanted. The junior coach isn't playing me. I just went and saw a player of ours last night playing in the minors who was a second round pick of the Philadelphia Flyers. And everyone goes through adversity. He went off to the USHL. Great prospect, but he's 18 years old. Most of the players there are older, more experienced. He was a healthy scratch for 7 of the first 11 games. He wanted to go home. I had to talk him into staying, really push him. And then 18 months later, he was drafted in the NHL draft in the 2nd round. But that's the kind of adversity everyone can follow and find. But for the parents that believe their son is the next coming, they can't do that, right? They'll be on the phone every 2 hours and do it. So the crazy parents, first of all, it's almost 100% correlation that every crazy parent approaches me by saying, well, I'm not one of those crazy hockey parents. Without fail. I can give you an allegory that I used to run into in college, but I think I stepped over that boundary once already. Probably shouldn't refer back to those times. But people come up to you and say, I'm not a crazy hockey parent. They are a crazy hockey parent most of the time.
yes.
Number 2 is if their how would I say this best? If their priorities clearly put perceived hockey success in the short term above normal family values and goals, like being together for meals and having your kid at home, that's suspicious as well. There are reasons some kids leave home before senior year in high school. Now, as I told you before, most of your lack of success comes from the off ice. And so if you have a normal household, the best place for a 15, 16, 17-year-old boy is with his parents to be stable, not sending him off to someone else who doesn't have much of vested interest in him to be a parent. And then that kid's alone with his computer and his friends for 7 hours a day and playing hockey for 2 hours a day. The best thing for teenagers. Actuaries would probably tell you that's a pretty bad idea. That's why boys get higher insurance rates for driving cars. So you have that issue with hockey parents. If they're saying, oh, I want to send my kid off too early. Now, reasons I've seen for kids to go off early is like wearing the USA jersey. That's something worthwhile. I've seen some high school coaches who were so off the beam that you had to leave. In fact, one in Stillwater years ago cut a kid to the JV team because he didn't like the father's politics and had an issue with the parents. The kid left the Stillwater JV team and went and played in the USHL. Top 4 guy. So, that's a reason to go, right? I knew another player whose parents were getting divorced and it was a particularly rancid situation. So needed to get out of there. So there's reason to get out of the house. But if you have a stable, loving family household for your kid, and a parent saying, I want to send my kid off to Dallas or Long Island to be a better hockey player than his peers, I'm kind of like, ugh. more players are drafted out of the Minnesota League here, Minnesota High School League, than are drafted out of any other non-junior league in the United States. And per capita, if you look at the best teams, most of the junior leagues, like Edina had more players drafted than any Canadian junior team for a period in the last decade. So if you're sending your kid off somewhere, and by the way, Minnesota, I don't know if North Dakota has open enrollment. Minnesota has open enrollment, right? So you can go to another high school. If you live in Edina, you can enroll in Lakeville South and that. If you can't find with open enrollment a place for your kid to play around here and you're sending him far away, to me that says likely values issue there, you know, as it goes, because unless you have a reason like the ones I just mentioned, you know, something happened with the coach, whoever else, it's there. And then you have finally the parent that comes to me, and this is the worst one for Kyle and I, who says, will you call, let's say Cedar Rapids in the USHL, you call Cedar Rapids and tell them to draft him, you know, get my son drafted in the USHL. I'd say, all right, let's say hypothetically I did that, then what? Well, he's in USHL. No, he's just drafted. Like, so I call and I call in a favor and they draft him. So he shows up at camp and they're like, well, this guy wasn't on our board. We only did it because he's Tom Lynn's guy. Let's see what he can do. And they don't think he's good enough. So what happens then? Well, the parents usually staggered because you can't beat the system, right? The coach has to think you're good enough. And a lot of people think it's political, you know, at that level. Now, I will tell you that the junior level, these are a lot of entry level guys, some of the younger coaches or people on their way down who having success somewhere else. So they're not perfect coaches, but believe me, Kelly will know this, that successful hockey player who got the good looking girlfriend in college, now they're living together engaged. He's now living in a small town in Iowa coaching junior. This is not what she signed up for when he was a college star, right? So he wants to get out of Iowa more than anything else. He's not given a first line position to his college roommate's cousin over the kid he thinks is going to get him out of Iowa by winning games. Like, they're making decisions to win games. They're not always right, but they are desperate to get out of the juniors and up into the pro ranks or the college ranks. So they're trying to win. So there's no political thing where, oh, all those junior teams are fixed and it's all fake. They're doing their best, not perfectly. But the parent that thinks it's fixed bounces from advisor, agent, always thinking there's going to be a sale somewhere. You're going to use some magic words. And sometimes I challenge them. I said, you want me to call? One wanted me to call the coach at St. Cloud. Their kid wasn't even playing the highest level of junior hockey. I was like, what would I tell Brett Larson? Your kid's the next Cale Makar, you know, and he's gonna look on elite prospects and see where he is and how many points he has. You know, what is he playing on a broken leg? So that is the hockey parent conundrum, which is how much you engage. And most of the time I just try not to engage. I try to slip by and say, you're probably right. We're all wrong, you know, and I wish you luck. But the scariest thing is for the kid. I feel so bad for the kids. They just want to have a good time. I mean, they miss out on high school sometimes, the prom, all the things they want to do because their parents carting around to play hockey and they're not even that into it, right? Sorry, was that too long of an answer?
No, there's no such thing as too long of an answer, but that was an incredibly reasonable answer, no matter how much bait I gave you. And we've had a long history of reasonable answers that we've been trying to knock down. So let me try to get you into more unreasonable land.
I will tell you the one example, though. There was a player who was born in 1997 who's no longer playing hockey, but his dad came to us and said, I did the analytics, because this guy was a gambler. He did a lot of card counting stuff. My son, so this kid was 17 and the draft year was coming up. He said, my son is better than Connor McDavid. So I said, wow, you know, I'm not even going to argue with you. You're going to make a lot of money. So good luck to you. Connor McDavid.
The equivalent in youth baseball is you need to come look at my kid's stats. Oh, and by the way, my wife runs the stats for our baseball team. I've got two rules when I talk about new players in baseball. One is if the parent moving in shows me the stats from the other team, he's probably not as good as the stats that he's showing me. And the second rule is if you're telling me your player, usually if someone say, well, I have a private coach and they're like, he's from the Dominican. I was like, does that really matter? Like, I suppose it's if you in hockey, I don't know, Kyle probably has a better nationality equivalent as Dominican pitching coach, but
still Dominican.
I didn't need to know where it was from.
Yeah, it's still Dominican.
We send all our guys to Dominican pitching coaches.
It's It's Finns for goalies and Dominicans for defensemen.
Yeah.
Right?
There you go.
The just brief, the same gentleman that told Tom the son was better than Connor McDavid. Tom and I went to meet with them, and he said, "Hey, can I get you guys a beer?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll have one." He got himself a nice microbrew out of the fridge and gave me like a warm Schlitz or something. I'm like,
Coors Light. I remember that.
Coors
It was
Light.
Coors Light.
more.
That was nice.
I didn't warrant the good stuff.
So yeah, there's a lot of hockey stories. I'm not telling you, Corey, but I just feel bad throwing some parents under the bus who might feel bad about it and eventually hear this podcast.
Well, it's okay. We'll try. I'm not going to stop trying to throw the bait out there. So we'll transition slightly. With your history of playing hockey and being around hockey, you must have heard some world-class chirps. Like, what's the best one you've ever said or heard?
Like, for example, Corey is a master baiter in this situation.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, definitely, right there. Wow, there's just so many that are situational that it's hard to classify. So you remember Dino Cicerelli? It might be too young. The North Stars.
Nope, I'm not.
So he got a certain charges levied against him by the police at one point. And in Madison Square Garden, there was a fan who would be about 7 rows up from the corner when there was a face-off in the defensive zone end for them, who had a trench coat. And he'd open it up and yell, "Hey, Dino, I'm a 5-year-old boy." Just at the quietest time, That was a tough one. Some
Actually,
good
that Vino
situational.
They met him in Las Vegas.
When my son's team, my 06's team a few years ago was playing a particularly physical, rough team from Grand Forks. This was before I challenged the entire. It was East Grand Forks. Sorry,
East side, yeah.
Grand Forks. Before I challenged the entire parent section to a fight.
Nice. Everyone does in East Grand Forks. You're fine, Tom.
The only person who could make benefit was a grandmother. She stood up and went, "F you!" I was like, "Really? Just the grandma?"
Oh yeah. Grandma's doing business.
So I told my son, I said, next time that kid chirps you, ask him what gas station he's going to work in next year.
Awesome.
And it was painful to watch because you could tell the kid was just one of those types, with the mustache at age 15 already and just ratty looking. Like so much of it is circumstantial like that, where you're from and who you're dealing with, that it's hard to say. I found some of the best ones were about fighting. And so, like a guy saying, you get challenged to a fight and say, my coach says I can't fight guys below the third line. Sorry. Responses like that. No, my coach said I can't fight guys with IQs lower than 100.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just drives people wild.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And that leaves out all the ones that have sexual innuendos, but
yeah.
that's
We're
a whole nother world.
We're a highbrow after dark podcast. Don't get that confused.
Right.
Yeah.
There is the dark web after dark podcast, but we could probably bring that content up for.
That's season 2.
Yeah, we'll drag ourselves down to the East Grand Forks cesspool one day.
One day.
So Tom, you've worked with a lot of players, and I'm assuming you've talked a little bit about some arbitration type things, but you have any good free agent stories that you could share, or like different situations when you're working in between contracts or things of that nature?
Well, actually, one of my favorite ones is an arbitration story. It was a player, because I had a couple of them. Kyle appreciated this because he likes war stuff, but we had a tough guy file for arbitration once who wasn't really a tough guy. In fact, he was traded to another team, Atlanta at the time, and the Atlanta coach said, "I think he's dyslexic. He's 6'5" and he plays like he's 5'6". So this guy wasn't that tough, right? But his agent wrote up this brief saying how tough he was because he was a big body and everything else. And so I wrote a reply brief comparing him to the Maginot Line, which is what the French had up to hold back the Germans in World War II. The Germans just went around and took over France shortly. So that was fun. But a player we had at the Wild, I won't use his name, but we'll call him Al. After our first year, a lot of players in expansion teams have inflated stats because there was an expansion team, right? So they couldn't make it somewhere else, but they get to play power play time or whatever else. And this kid's stats, I think he had 16 goals that year. 4 of them were empty netters. And he was a defensive player. And Joe Sakic happened to be injured that year. he still scored 30 goals, but 15 power play goals. So they led their brief by saying Al scored more goals, even strength this year than Joe Sakic, the Hall of Fame, you know, and he was just loving it. And he playing for a defensive coach like Jacques Lemaire, that he was just the premier winger, defensive winger in the league. And the Wild had a low goals against average, and they listed all these players that he was on the ice against, you know, Hall of Famers, Paul Kariya, Chris Pronger, Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, on and on. So when it came time for me to cross-examine him, I said, hey, Al, I'm going to put up the hockey rink here, and we're just going to go over. So the arbitrator understands what I wish I had a hockey board here for you, but I said, so on the forecheck, what do you do? Well, on the F1, I go in and would you get the puck? Well, not generally, because I'm supposed to push the puck to the side. So, you're just kind of a decoy, right? You push the puck to the side, right? Then it goes down the ice and they dump it. So the other team gets possession in the zone. What do you do then? Well, I got to cover the point. So I said, okay, so you're out here by the point next to the defenseman here. And so where are Joe Sakic and Paul Kariya and Peter Forsberg? Well, they're down there, Mr. Lynn. I said, oh, so you're standing out here by the defenseman. Well, the guys that score the goals. Yeah, I am. So it just goes to show you don't want to overshoot when you take these shots in arbitration. But free agency stories are mostly about lies and the people that tell them, both teams and agents.
I'm listening.
And I put one in my book that I wrote about the Wild. It's like, talk about that one. We had a player who's now with the NHLPA who we had agreed to a deal in principle with his agent. His agent said he has to talk to his wife. He's got this thing going where they do stuff together and blah blah blah. And my boss like, it's July 1. Why didn't he have this all lined up? Well, she went to the mall, and so 2 more calls he was delaying, and then he signed with Dallas for like $25,000 more per year. And they never returned our calls, by the way. We saw it on the TV. And he was just buying time with this story about he and his wife do things together, and they're all lovey-dovey, and it's a modern relationship. And he was shopping our offer to every other team. This is back in 01-02, so the money was low. It was like $750, and he got $775 somewhere else. But guys will tell you stuff like that. Another time we had Peter Forsberg, before he played for Nashville, he came in to have dinner with us with the Wild, and he was such a gentleman, and he was so worried that he would raise false expectations. So the opposite of everyone else. He just said, I don't know if I'm physically ready to play, and if I am, I want to go to a team I feel like I can really identify with and play for. So that's why I'm coming to have dinner with you, because I'm not going to enter into this unless I can give you 100%. It's not about the money. He made his money. You probably don't know this, but Forsberg knew the guy who invented Crocs, so he got the franchise to sell Crocs in all of Sweden and Finland. So his agent told me he made more money from that than hockey. So he had all the money in the world, but he was such a gentle, competitive guy. He said, I want to do the right thing here. He ended up going, somewhere else, unfortunately. But some of these guys, Marian Hossa was the same way. Just a really, really good person you could trust up and down. It came down to Detroit or us to get his services. He was wanted to play with Marian Gaborik at the time. Probably led to me getting fired indirectly because we landed Hossa. We would have won that last division championship. But he decided to sign a 1-year deal in Detroit, thinking he could win a cup quicker rather than kind of a 4-year cycle with the Wild, which was very transparent of him, to have a player be like that, which I respected.
Wow. This question, I'm going to say, I think Kyle fed me, but Billy Tibbetts.
Do you remember him?
No, but Kyle fed it to me, so I'm not taking any credit for this one.
Wow. Yeah, so I did this on occasion. I was a minor league GM, and I did some various machinations at the time. Like Todd McClellan, who's now coach of the LA Kings, but was coach in Edmonton and San Jose for a while. He was my coach. And so in 03, for example, I traded away his leading number 1 defenseman for more grit, because I figured the team need more grit. He was like, the coach called me, like, how can you trade Lawrence Nicolot for grit? I was like, yeah, we want to win champions. What we got to do. So then a week and a half later, for the trade deadline, I traded his leading scorer, a guy named Corey, away for a goalie. So now Todd calls me. He's like, are you just trying to hobble me? No, you traded away my leading scorer, my number 1 defenseman? You don't want to win? I was like, no, this is going to win. We needed Scully because you just went to Grand Rapids and lost 3-1, and you outshot them 31-10. And he didn't believe me. So that's the type of things we did in the minor leagues to win. So in the lockout year, 04-05, we had a star-studded team there. We had like Koivu and Bouchard and Burns, but these young guys, they couldn't play against the AHL veterans. Because of the NHL lockout, a lot of veterans were playing in the AHL that year. So we had all these future stars, but we were barely in fourth place and making the playoffs, and I had to make the playoffs. I was like, I can't miss the playoffs with this team. There's only 5 teams in our division and 4 make it, right? So I knew of a player who had served jail time. He was younger, very rough character. He played for Pittsburgh for a while. I want to say, stop the cuff, 200 NHL games in, but he kept getting in trouble. He was over muscled and very aggressive. He's playing in the low minors. So I said to my boss, Doug Riseborough, like, I want to bring Billy in to do something with his team there. He's like, really? No. I said, what are we going to do? Miss the playoffs? So he said, all right, you can bring him in, but you're in charge of him. And if anything happens, any arrests, if he so much as has an argument with someone at the arena, he's got to be gone, right? So I said, all right, I'll take charge of him. So he came in, and the coaches were afraid of him. Now I'm leaving out parts of this story, but he was a scary character. And we had one assistant coach, Cam Stewart, who carried around a stick all the time because he was afraid Billy would snap in practice, and go after him. So he's always like, so the players were on edge. And Billy had 8 points in 8 games to finish the regular season because I picked him up right at the trade deadline. And the team made the playoffs, and we're going along. And then we win 2 games. I think it was best of 5. The 3rd game we lose at home, and I'm down in Houston. And it happens that my boss is there as well because the Wild was done. And then I get a call about midnight. Billy's at the police station. What? What happened? Well, he's leaving the rink and he was upset. He went through a red light because it's late at night in the downtown. You can wait at a red light for 2 minutes. No one's coming type deal. So the cop wasn't even giving him a ticket, but he jumped out of the car and started yelling at him. So eventually they ended up having 5 cops, subdue him and arresting him. And they knew who he was. So my boss said, yeah, you have to get rid of him. I was like, oh, well, I'll have Donnie get a flight. And people tell me, he's like, no, you have to do it. So you have to go to his apartment and tell him, and then you have to stay with him until he leaves town because I don't want this to reflect on the Wild, if anything happens. So that's what I did. And Billy and I spent the next, whatever it was, 8 hours together, through the next day. But I drove him all over until he went on his way. And he's such a nice guy. He was besieged by a host of demons, but he really was a good athlete. Which was the oddest thing. I had him, and then I guess ESPN 30 for 30 did a special on the Danbury Trashers. I had Brad Wingfeld, who mentions me in it. But both Wingfeld and Billy Tibbetts were very tough, both 400, 500, 600 penalty minute guys who could score and just couldn't put together the off-ice stuff, the personality, the approach to the game to be successful. Wingfield, I noticed in the low minors, had, I think, 29 goals and 600 penalty minutes one year. So I was like, I got to bring that guy into Houston. I call him up, he plays 2 games, and he loses his mind once. And I said, Brad, if you can just stay under control and not get like a 2, 5, and 10 every game, but just maybe a minor or 2 and a fight every 3rd game, you're a good enough athlete. You can do this. So he tried. He just couldn't do it. He just wanted to kill people. So I ended up having to move him on.
You're telling me the story in the back of my mind. All I can think about was the Danbury Trashers the entire time you're telling me the story.
Yeah, so someone told me he brought this up, like during his interview for that ESPN 30 for 30, that we gave him the chance and said, hey, you just have to be normal. All you have to do is act normal. And couldn't do it. Which I've been there before.
It is a wonderful program. If you have not seen the Untold Danbury Trashers one, it's one to watch.
Good. Yeah. And just briefly, just sort of a fun fact, I coached against Lawrence Nicolat this year. We played him in a tournament in Moorhead. And so
he's a great guy. So the worst part of the story, Corey, the 2 guys I traded to win a championship, and we did win the championship, and the goalie I traded for was the most valuable player in the playoffs. Both of them found cute Minnesota girls during training camp and married them and settled locally. So I see them a lot. I just saw Lawrence in the bathroom at a Wild game, and he said to his kid, hey, that's the guy that traded me away for the championship.
No good deed goes unpunished, Tom.
I tell you, it's like a Curb Your Enthusiasm thing, like a recurring character keeps coming in, and I'll come around the corner, and there they are. I'm the guy that traded him away. I actually traded away one of my clients. So I traded Ryan Hamilton, and then when I became an agent, he hired me as agent. I was like, wow, I'm the only agent who's ever traded his client.
Kyle's been trying to trade me for a box of baseballs and a used penthouse, but it never happened.
Yes, won't stick. He just keeps moving closer to me. It's having the opposite effect.
That's tough.
It is. You're telling me.
That's us. The only thing I can tell you about all the stories, first of all, amazing stories, Tom. I honestly think we could sit and talk for about 85 hours, but the one
that's just Corey talking.
Yeah, the one that resonates with me the most is when you're talking about arbitration. not out kicking your coverage. If I would have ever followed that treatise, I would never have been married. So,
That's a good way to put it.
oh.
Shoot your shot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
That's different.
he asked me out, and trust me, that is the thing she's regretted most in her life for the last 26 years.
She doesn't make a mean sourdough.
He does.
You got that going for you.
Yeah. Tom, I was looking, I have a copy of your book. It's on a different bookshelf, but you want to give that a plug if people want to check out a couple more of those stories?
I mean, if they want to know what it was like. So I wrote a book after I left the Wild by accident because I was writing blogs for the Hockey News as a side gig. And I started out in agency. And then I realized that the new owner for the Wild was really dinging the old regime, like a lot of new people will, because the team was failing. They were losing. He was losing money. It was like, oh, the old guys did it all wrong and we're doing it right. And I just felt like the story hadn't been told. So I'd written 10 or 12 blogs to Hockey News. I thought, well, I'll write a series of blogs on what the Wild history really is, what we did, what it was like behind the scenes, just being an assistant GM, what was like at the draft table the first year we got Gabrick, what was it like deciding whether to re-sign Andrew Brunette in 06, what it was like getting Brian Rolston, what it was like trying to land Peter Forsberg, which is a whole chapter in the book. So I started writing these blogs and I realized this really should be a book after I wrote about 21 of them. Just on the road, whatever else, 500 or 600 word blogs, and I thought I could put this together. So my mistake was I started writing it in Microsoft Word, and I thought, well, it should be pretty long, maybe 150 to 200 pages. So I kept writing over the course of 2 years, and it was kind of freeing as well to get these stories out. But I put it in blog form, so it's not like you have to read the whole book at once. It's short stories that are 500 to 1,200 words long, all gathered chronologically. And it's behind the scenes stuff. It's what it was like to get on the team plane, what Jacques Lemaire was like to argue with, what certain players are like, how we ran the locker room, why trainers are so important, in different ways than you'd think. So it was all in that book, and it set forth the real history of the Minnesota Wild, what we did. We were the most successful expansion team of all time until Vegas came along in a different expansion era, much easier rules, but we kind of did it the hard way and beat up on Columbus. And we had a lot of fun along the way and a lot of great stories. Especially the pranks. I no longer do pranks, especially my current day job as a general counsel, because once the police come, it's like you can't one up that. You can't get over that top. And so I kind of give up the pranks. But there's a lot of pranks in the book we talk about because it's part of the culture of hockey. And it's a lot of fun. So if someone wondered what it was like behind the scenes of an NHL team, I essentially wrote a journal, for those 9 years I was there. It's pretty cool.
What's the name of the book, Tom?
How to Bake an NHL Franchise from Scratch. 2 reasons I use that. Number one, our chief amateur scout was always saying that. And number 2, I want a unique name that only can bring up one book. Because if if you type into Amazon Wild Books, you'd get everything, but only that one comes up. Yeah, our chief amateur scout would often say, a player has to mature and develop at their own pace. It's not like you can make a cake that says you have to bake at 350 for 45 minutes and you put it at 450 for 15 minutes or quick. It'll just ruin the cake. And you can't bake it at too low a heat for too long. It's a certain heat and a certain air pressure that a cake has to be to reach the right temperature. So with a player development, his point was often to us that each player has their own recipe and you have to follow it the best you can and pay attention to it to make it work. So that's where the idea came for the title. An NHL franchise is the same way. It's different in Vegas than it is in Minnesota, than it is in Columbus, than it is in Seattle.
What Hall of Fame is that gentleman a member of? This is for Corey's interest.
Which gentleman?
The chief amateur scout.
Oh yeah, Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame.
Well, there you go.
In
This podcast, if it's not known for anything, it's known for 2 things. We're going to talk about how great Red River is, and we're always going to circle back to baseball.
Got it.
Just keep Corey happy. And that's 2 weeks in a row we've had a book recommendation.
It's funny. I was going to drop some Ralph Kiner-isms in this podcast, but I thought better of it.
Oh no, Corey will eat it up. Kelly and I
don't
just
stop.
mute ourselves, but
Yeah. Well, I learned a lot of baseball from Ralph Kiner.
yeah. Corey or Kelly, any parting shots? Now's your time.
Do it.
No, I feel like I've been mean to Kyle for the last 6 or 7 episodes, so maybe I should be nicer. I mean, he's finally learned how to pronounce Saskatchewan right, so that's something.
I'll never ever do it. I had 2 conversations about it today. Just spreading the right way, you know? I'm like the
Kyle's
John
from
Cena of
Fillmore,
Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan, which has the notoriety of being named after the worst president in U.S. history, Millard Fillmore, and the only president from Skaneateles, New York, my hometown. Small world, huh?
Yeah.
Very.
To tie the book and Fillmore and Saskatchewan together, Tom and I were making a surprise trip to Regina, Saskatchewan, to see a player. We were running a little behind. We left. We had copies of his book in the car, and we were doing like 140 to get to Regina on time. And we were pulled over by the mounted
Is that kilometers or miles per hour?
kilometers.
I think it was Kelvin. I think it was Kelvin.
Kelvin, yeah.
Kelvin,
Absolutely.
140 Kelvin.
Absolute hero. And one autographed copy of the book later, no ticket.
Hey,
Wow.
there you go.
Yeah.
Like it.
And here, Matt Moreland just has to show his Cavs Denny patrolman, and he usually gets out free.
Kyle, next time just bring that sticker I bought you about Regina that explain, yes,
The city that rhymes with fun?
city
Yeah.
that rhymes with fun. Yep, and you just give that to the highway patrolman. Get out of jail free ticket. All right.
So Kyle doesn't
No,
look
they
like
know
you.
that joke.
Kyle might get a different reaction because it's not you giving the sticker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be like, sir, step out of the car.
Right?
Shit.
The sliding.
The officer might say the same thing my dad used to say about me. He's like, "You're homely as a mule's ass."
Sir,
Wow.
we're not going to do this today.
Or you're mistaking the podcast with therapy time. This is different.
Sorry. Therapist was 7 episodes ago.
Yep, yeah, she was,
Right. Right. We'll get another one on here.
yeah.
We'll
we'll
do
circle
Yeah.
back. So, well, Tom, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We're
Sure.
trying to keep the podcast reasonably.
No, I see we ran over. Sorry about that.
Oh no, that's just fine. Just like I'm shooting for an hour and 15 minutes a show, and I think we're right on time. So
All right.
we're good. Thanks again for
Good night.
joining us. I will put a little link to your book when we post this. It'll be out tomorrow by noon. And come back anytime as we approach 30 episodes. Maybe you'll make it an appearance in season 2.
If you guys are big time, I was there at the beginning.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you
End of
all.
the beginning. Thanks again.
Thank you
Sure.
so much, Tom.
Good night.
Good night, guys.